joining us at Health Interactive. This is the first panel of this room, and I'd like you to all meet a very awe-inspiring panel of Roger, Jocelyn, Derek, and Jesse, who are managing their conditions and health conditions with healthy diet and exercise. So please give a warm welcome.
Thanks. I am Roger. We are using active lifestyle as part of how we manage our conditions, in concert with our healthcare providers and evidence-based medicine. I'm going to give you a bit of background about how we got to what we're doing, and then I'm going to introduce these folks, and I'll give you the shape first of the session. First, I'm going to give you the background of what Athletes for Wellbeing is, what our goals are. Then you're going to meet a group of 3 of my heroes, in all honesty. You're going to hear a little bit about the specifics of how they've gotten to be able to do what they now do and who they work with. Then you're going to hear what I like to think of as my wild card question, which is the blessing you've gotten out of getting this diagnosis, right? Which may not be the answer that you expect. So let's rewind for background on how Athletes for Wellbeing got to be here. 10 years ago, I was a creative executive at Walt Disney Imagineering, happily drinking the Kool-Aid. I'd probably still be there, were it not for the eve of my 50th birthday when something didn't quite feel right. I'd been a competitive athlete when I was in school, in college. I'd stayed really clean after that. And what I learned in that year was part of the reason we live this lifestyle is so we can overcome a challenge. Part of it is so we know when something subtle is going wrong. And I knew something subtle was going wrong. At the end of my corporate physical, an MRI and a biopsy later, I heard the words that 1 in 2 American men will hear in their lifetime and 1 in 3 American women. Those words are, you have cancer. The world became a blanket of white noise. I had healthcare professionals saying things to me, but I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. I went home, I didn't know where to take a first step. Suddenly the bottom line of the Walt Disney Company didn't quite matter as much to me anymore, and the next day I started my wellness plan. Fast forward 5 years. I had the honor to leave Disney and become the first creative director at the National Cancer Institute, and I launched a company called My Bridge for Life, and we started building wellness networks for a variety of organizations in a variety of different conditions. Fast forward a couple more years. I was one of those nutcases, and I'll talk about it in a little while, who decided that my goals going through chemo and radiation should be 3 triathlons by my next birthday. So I was working with a couple of organizations, including NBC Universal Triathlon Team and California Triathlon, and we realized there are lots of people doing active lifestyle who are managing everything from diabetes to spinal cord injury to MS, a whole host of things, and there is no place, no way for us to share our best practices with the people who are following in our footsteps. So I applied for a couple of grants. I got told, you guys are outliers. Why should we give you money to study this, right? You're such outliers that, we're not going to grant you anything. So we decided to invest and build it ourselves and figure it out. So 2 weeks ago, we launched Athletes for Wellbeing, soft launched. We are trying to ramp it up. We are already partnered with Life Rolls On, Bike MS, California Triathlon, Craig Hospital, Challenged Athletes Foundation is coming on board, a number of other organizations. And we are looking to bring in as many as we can because we believe that active lifestyle is critical to health and wellness and living a long and healthy life, and we believe we need to understand why. So that's the background. The goal of Athletes for Wellbeing is to get as much information as we can. We're calling them tips for life for anyone following in your footsteps who is either, number 1, trying to use active lifestyle, diet and exercise to live a longer, healthier life, or number 2, managing a condition or a diagnosis and utilizing active lifestyle as one of the tools. Again, today, no platform. to share those best practices, accept ours, and we want it to be as social, broad, and free as it possibly can be. So that's my intro and how we got to be. I've told you what the moment was like for me, but by way of introduction, and you're going to want to applaud after each of them introduce themselves, hold it till the end, or not. But I'm going to give this panel the opportunity to talk a little bit. Jocelyn, what did it feel like when you realized that your health and wellness was going to be forever different? What was that moment like?
For me, I was actually shocked. It happened for me, lab results back from a normal annual physical. I'd always been, completely healthy and in my mind, and felt like that I was doing the things that would keep me healthy. And it comes back that not only have I got elevated cholesterol, but I also have a genetic condition that puts me at an accelerated risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. So I was fairly shocked about that because on the one hand. On the other hand, I shouldn't have been shocked. My grandmother had a heart attack when she was 55. My oldest brother had a heart attack when he was 45. And I lost another brother to a stroke, and he was only 59. So at 56, for me, is something that I have to worry about. And that's really...
I need to add a couple of things. Jocelyn is an age category elite triathlete. She medaled second in Malibu last year, which is kind of a big deal. And her active lifestyle is, and she is the only member of her family not on statin drugs. So
I was given that choice, along with the choice of, do you want to manage it by diet and exercise or statin drugs? I was like, okay, I can handle diet and exercise. Let's go that direction.
Thanks. So Derek, what was the moment like when you realized your life was never going to be the same? What are you doing now?
I was working in London. I was working about 60 hours a week, 60 to 70 hours a week. And all of a sudden, my feet started feeling numb, and within a week, I couldn't feel anything at all from the waist down. I couldn't walk. I couldn't work. I was taken into the emergency room. They did a full workup, full spine MRI, full brain MRI, and within a week the neurologist told me that I had several lesions on my spine and several lesions in my brain, and the diagnosis was most probably going to be multiple sclerosis. So I kind of struggled on for a couple of years trying to kind of do the best I could. There was a lot of changes. I was in a wheelchair. I wasn't coping very well. Then I met my beautiful wife. I moved to California. I found out about Bike MS, and I've been cycling ever since and feeling 100 times better than I did 10 years ago at the point of diagnosis. I feel 100 times better than I did.
One of the reasons we feel Athletes for Wellbeing is critical, and I'm going to add on to Derek's story a little bit. 10 plus years ago, the thinking around MS was when you get an MS diagnosis, you don't exercise. You do not raise the core temperature of your body because the medical wisdom of the time said it will progress the disease. That medical wisdom has begun to change. There now is gray area. And we need to understand, we and MS patients and MS supportive caregivers need to understand what the truth is and what the real benefits or deterrence of active lifestyle is. That's one of the dreams of this project, is actually to be able to contribute to some of the science and understanding of what active lifestyle does or does not do for chronic disease or condition. Next up is, though he's the age of my son, one of my personal heroes ever since I saw Step into Liquid. Jesse, tell us what the moment was like and what you're up to now.
Yeah, 17 years ago, I was on the verge of being a professional surfer. I grew up here in the Pacific Palisades. And I went surfing one morning before school up at Zuma Beach, and I pulled into this barrel, and I came out. The wave hit me in my back, and I went head first in the water. I didn't really know how shallow it was, and I ended up hitting my head on the sandbar, and just my whole body just went limp and numb, and I was floating there face down in the water, and luckily a wave turned me over, and I knew that was my chance to call for help. And my friends were out there, but they didn't really believe that I was injured, so they didn't come to help me. Some more waves kind of tumbled me around, and my best friend paddled over, and I remember I told him that you got to keep my head above water, or else I was going to drown. They finally put me up on the beach, and I lay there in the sand. I knew something was really wrong. All my dreams were flashing before my eyes, and they took me to the emergency room, and the doctor told me a couple days later that I broke the 6th vertebrae in my neck and that I was paralyzed. I may never be able to walk again. At that moment, my life just totally changed. I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. So I went back to school, finished high school, then went down to San Diego State. I was studying to be a psychologist, but I realized that I didn't really want to sit in an office all day, so I came up with another idea when I was doing an interview. Everybody told me, hey, life goes on, man, life goes on. I looked down and I realized that life rolls on. So I started the foundation, Life Rolls On. We take people with disabilities surfing, skateboarding. We do that in California, Texas, Florida, New Jersey, Virginia, North Carolina. And just the beauty that I get to see in everybody's face when they catch a wave just made it all worthwhile. So the foundation I started, we do auction, dinner, concerts, poker tournament, 5K CrossFit event, surf events, skate events, concerts, and poker tournament, and just raise money to be able to take more people out, because majority of people that get injured are young. They want to be active, and we're more about the action sports, bringing families together, and communities together, and so that's what Life Rolls On is.
So now's the time to give it up for this panel. All of you have bookmarks on your chairs. So we are here also to support the organizations that support the people who are doing active lifestyle in their condition. So if you will be able to find Life Rolls On, their URL, how to contact Jesse, Dara, Bike MS, Jocelyn, California Triathlon, and My Bridge to Life. From that URL, whether you're a patient, a provider, a caregiver, a supporter, or just an interested individual, it's a place to come. It's a place to come connect. So we called this panel "Real Athletes, Real Patients, Real Knowledge." And the next round is, and I asked these guys to prep for it, after this happened to you, 3 things. If you were talking to someone who was following in your footsteps, what are the three most critical things you would tell them they need to do after a spinal cord injury? Jesse, go ahead, man.
Yeah.
What are the 3 things you'd say to someone who's following?
I actually did not prepare for all of this. I like to just talk about what I'm feeling at the moment, man. Things change. I could have met somebody yesterday that could have changed my idea, so I apologize, man. I didn't even study. So these are just things that I've thought about right now. So 3 things that I would tell somebody is who suffered spinal cord injury is that there's your dreams and all the things that you want out of your life can still come true. And no matter how you got injured, there's ways to get back into so many different sports that you once did when you were able-bodied. And then 3 is just always have something to look forward to, whether it's going to the movies, going on a date, the weather's going to be nice, you're going on a trip. Always have something to look forward to, whether it's a day away, a year away. That way, the time what's passing is something that you're looking forward to. We all dwelled on the things that we didn't have, or we didn't have anything to look forward to, whether you're able-bodied, paralyzed, you'd be pretty depressed and down. So I always have something to look forward to, big or small, and make sure you tell everyone that, you know, that's in your life that you care about. You never know when something bad might happen. Tomorrow's never guaranteed, so enjoy today, everything with what you have. If you want more, work hard. There's always somebody out there that has more than you, but there's always a lot more people that have less than you. So be grateful for what you have. And that was like 5 things. I cheat. You can only say 3.
That's all good. I know I'm only going to go 2, so I'm giving you one of mine. Derek.
I would say with MS, one of the most important things is to try and keep moving, to try and keep what you have moving for as long as possible, to try and get the connections working again, get the muscles working again. Another big thing I would say was cut out stress. Stress and MS do not go well together at all. If I'm stressed out, it's not just physical things start happening, cognitive things as well. My cognitive function when I'm really stressed is just an absolute nightmare. That's probably one of the hardest to deal with is the cognitive problems, and stress is definitely that's the thing that triggers it. I would say to get a good medical team in place, a neurologist, physiotherapist, occupational therapist, nutritionist, clinical neuropsychologist, get them all in place, and you pick them. If you don't like your neurologist, get a new one. Find another one. Find one that you're happy with, you're comfortable with. They work for you, you don't work for them. You get your medical team in order, and it'll stand you good stead through your illness. I think that's 3, is it? That's good.
So you should make a shirt. Don't stress. Let's cure MS. Do that shirt right there, man. Trademarked by Jesse Billauer. I need royalties. I watched the Shark Tank. Shoot me out a deal. Shark Tank.
Considering that I thought I was perfectly okay, I'd say an annual checkup. There are things that can be going on that you don't know about, that there are no symptoms. So that would be one recommendation. Another is to go ahead and do whatever you can to support optimum health, no matter what your physical state is. There's so much research.
Go ahead, let me finish rolling off. Thank you.
There's so much research that's shown that you can really impact your health with diet and exercise. So take advantage of that and do as much as you can. And I guess the third thing would be to know that you have choices and you can empower yourself. You can surround yourself with people who support you in your health journey. You can get involved with Athletes for Wellbeing as a way to communicate and be connected with people who are doing healthy things. So I guess the third thing is about empowering yourself. There is a lot of it, this journey that's in your hands.
I'm going to just give you 2 brass tacks things, and one of them is just a mechanical version of what Jesse started with. I learned early on that setting achievable health goals is critical at each phase of the journey. So I can tell you, I came home, you type whatever you get diagnosed into a Google search, you get 17.6 million hits, and you go, what if it is relevant? What if it's real? What if it applies to me? Right? And you have no way to filter it. We are providing a tool to do that, but we are also providing a structure. So We march in Athletes for Wellbeing across the 4 phases of diagnosis to treatment to healing to well-being. And when you think, I only have to deal with the diagnosis part at this point, you go, okay, I can breathe now. I know where to take a first step. I don't have to think about it all. I don't have to just be in shock, right? So setting achievable goals at each phase. Your diagnosis goals are going to be really different. My diagnosis goals were to find a really great surgeon that I was willing to put my life into their hands. And the first guy that my primary care GP referred me to was not it. He totally creeped me out. You know, it was to find a great oncologist, right? My treatment goals were much different, you know, much different. In healing, when I first got post-op, I wanted to be able to walk around the block and clear cobwebs. You know, that was as big as my activity level had to be for days 1 and 2, right? It wasn't, anyway, I'm not going to tell you when triathlon came into it. A little bit later, a little bit after the cobwebs were gone. So set achievable, measurable, smart health goals. And like Jesse said, it gives you something to look forward to. And when you check them off as complete, it gives you a sense of personal empowerment, right? That you know, that will help you build momentum to move from diagnosis to well-being. Second thing, part of the empowerment is taking charge of your own medical records and your own medical documentation. That doesn't just mean getting a copy of your EMR, your electronic medical record. You do need to do that, and you need to own it. The reason being, something could happen to your primary care GP tomorrow, and the day after that, you might have to explain what you've been through to somebody new. And without your medical history, they will start from scratch, which they'll want to do anyway, right, and put you through a battery of things that you won't be able to explain without your electronic medical record. So get a hold of your personal EMR and hang on to it, and don't depend on any digital service to hold it for you. Keep it yourself. As a part of this, keep a log of what you go through and what works for you and what doesn't work for you, for 2 reasons. One reason, because it will help you progress from diagnosis to well-being. You will learn, right? I can tell you, being on a hormone cocktail every day for my life, people who have trained with me and or raced with me or ridden with me know I get it right about 25% of the time. I get it wrong about 25% of the time. And I get it okay the rest of the time, right? Getting it wrong can mean, getting it right and getting it wrong can mean the difference between having an age category medal and being unconscious 500 yards into a run. So keeping meticulous records of what I do day to day has enabled me to manage my journey better, but almost, well, as importantly, it has enabled me to give back to anyone who's following in my footsteps in terms of what kind of knowledge I have to share that's specific to my diagnosis, my cancer, my hormone protocol, my age category, and the kind of events I'm doing. So, you know, in terms of the give back part of it, it's just as valuable. Last question. People go and think, you know, it's got to be the worst thing in your life to get a cancer diagnosis, a heart condition diagnosis, an MS diagnosis, a spinal cord injury. But I'm going to ask this group of people, and you know, what has been the biggest blessing that's come your way because of this event in your life? And I don't know, whoever wants to go first, you go.
I would say the biggest blessing to me in my life, if it wasn't for MS, I would never have met my work. I also think I'm a better person because of the diagnosis. I'm more understanding, I'm more empathy for people with different challenges in life. I can understand them better. I think that MS diagnosis has done a bit of good in my life. It's not all been negative. I'm involved with some fantastic people that like MS and other organisations. I wouldn't have been in touch with them if it wasn't for the MS. And I love what I'm doing. I love the cycling. I wouldn't give it up.
One of the J's?
I'll just say that like Derek, I'm much more compassionate, I think, for people in terms of what they're dealing with. So it's really kind of broadened my scope of different, I don't know, I guess to say that before I would have thought, well, I was doing everything right. If you did everything right, it would be okay. You know, you've done something wrong, and now it's like, oh, well, it's not really like that. We're all kind of, you know, dealt a hand, and so I'm definitely much more compassionate, and it's definitely added to my kind of knowledge about diet, exercise, and
I'll go next and let Jesse close it out. I would say, you know, unquestionable. So when I was a creative executive at a top Fortune 100 company, I made a lot more money. But I can tell you I didn't know necessarily why I went to work in the morning. I know now why I go to work in the morning. What I've learned over the last almost 10 years has been what it means to my personal well-being to be able to give back. And I know that makes me a healthier spiritual human being, and I believe that also makes me a healthier physical human being. So that's, I'll tell you, that's the gift that I think cancer has given me. Yes.
For me, a few things. I think my injury and over the past 17 years has taught me actually what a real job is. And to me, a real job is actually doing something that you love that makes it feel like it's not a job. The real part of it is doing things with other people in my situation and their families and able-bodied people that don't really get the meaning of independence and freedom and just appreciation of life and their life, and the ability to feel and walk, and you know, just that independence. Because all the money in the world couldn't buy that for me right now. But another thing is people ask me, hey, would you go back to the day you got injured and give up everything that you've done, you know, for the last 17 years? I mean, my answer is yeah. I would love to be healthy and walking and able-bodied and never have done anything that I've done in the last 17 years. But then I realized, like, there's certain things in your life that you can't change, and you have to just adapt to whatever, you know, the cards that are dealt. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job over the last 17 years, and you know, I feel like it's all led me to where I am today and the things that I'm doing. I'm really happy and proud of where I've taken life roles on. I'm really excited about the future and my future, and my injuries, you know, led me to meet an amazing woman who only makes me and life roles on better. I have an amazing dad who's so supportive, and those are my heroes, man. My heroes are the people that help me out on a day-to-day basis. Without them, I couldn't be me. I don't think anybody, you couldn't be who you are without the people you surround yourself with. And I think I'm amazing because I have amazing people I surround myself with.
So we will be out on the trade show in our booth for a couple of hours. We have a couple of minutes to do some Q&A if anybody has any questions they want to ask. Tom.
Can you touch a little bit more on nutrition and how it affected, how it played into your daily life?
I'm going to look to the registered dietitian.
in training.
On the stage to maybe answer that question. Are you okay with that? I know
Absolutely. It's for each of you.
How
it affected it, and if it made that huge of a difference along with the physical side of it.
I can do mine super quickly. I had some bad blood work about 4.5 years ago, and Jocelyn came to me and said, we got to go on the traditional classic anti-cancer diet that comes out of a book that I think is actually in there. And I went 50% raw, 100% vegan, still always had been organic. And I can tell you it was a disaster for me. 8 months later, my hemoglobin was through the floor.
I'm in school
Well, I think I remember a moment in training for the Malibu Triathlon where this person here rode up to me on a bike and said, "Are you okay? You don't look very good." It took me another 5 months to realize that the diet I was on was not right for me. It may be right for a lot of people, but it was not right for me. And there was a whole lot of science I didn't understand at that moment, and I needed to learn it fast. I don't know anybody else has any diet.
I'm not got any diet tips at all.
I would just say it's very individual. There is no, you read about, that was the big lesson I learned from that experience, is that, you know, you read the latest book, the paleo this, the that, the other, and it might work for you, but it might not. We all have very different physiologies. And as time goes on, we're going to see that people are going, when more genomic information is known about individuals, there'll be the right diet and exercise that your physician will be able to prescribe to you based on your personal physiology. So you have to kind of do your own thing and experiment and be intuitive about it, but be smart. Whole natural food, like real food, I think everybody would benefit from having the majority of their diet whole real food. Yeah, as opposed to fast processed.
Any other quick questions? Yes, Jane.
You talked about possibly crowdsourcing data, sharing the stories through numbers, and maybe coming to share what works, what doesn't. What's the vision for that?
Well, so honestly, we're 2 weeks into this at this point. We had an interesting conversation with Aetna already this morning here as a possibility of data sharing through them. The real vision is that we get enough of a pilot group together in Athletes for Wellbeing right now to be able to get some evidence and some learnings behind the fact that we need a larger national study, and we get an NIH grant to really look at active lifestyle and how it really interacts with multiple chronic conditions, because we're not looking at it now. We are looking, we are a nation of frightening numbers of obesity and diabetic, proportions. Yet we are not looking at active lifestyle as a means to treat and chronic condition, and we need to. So we hope that this gives us the pilot, and in the coming years we do a national study, and then we empower people like Jocelyn, like George, Jesse's dad, other sort of progressively thinking providers into utilizing active lifestyle, being diet and exercise, as a part of normal treatment. But normal treatment for chronic condition, not just for weight loss or looking better or anything peripheral. We should probably give up the room. Yes. So thank you very much. We're glad you're here. Spread the word.